Hi, friends. Mr. Rogers here, and today we're going to start a new unit. Um, it's probably my favorite unit to do. It's my favorite thing to talk about in biology. It's kind of where my master's kind of lies in biology, and I'm excited to teach you guys about it as much as I can before the second semester. And so, what we're going to start covering today is genetics. And genetics is a wide ranging field. It's going to cover everything from what we're going to talk about next couple weeks with cell cycle, mitosis, and cancer. And it's going to go all the way into Punnett squares, why you are the way you are, DNA technology, cloning, epigenetics, a bunch of different topics that you might have heard before, biohacking, stuff like that. And it's a huge subject. You could spend years and years and years on just genetics. And heck, there's classes at college level that is literally they just teach genetics for 3 years in a row. You take genetics 1, genetics 2, genetics 3. There's so much here, and the complexity is ridiculous. And that's the first thing right away. Is not that a lot of teachers would lie to you about this, but I'm going to be very, very, very honest and straightforward. We're going to teach genetics and learn genetics at a 10th through 12th grade level. I do make it a little bit harder than probably most bio teachers, just because it's um, my specialty. It's what I like to talk about. But I just want you to know there's gonna be some times where I'm gonna oversimplify things. So if you ever have a question and you're like, "Wow, that seems very weird that it's that simple," just ask, and I will tell you, well, it's not that simple. Like for example, we're gonna talk about eye color later on, and eye color is not as simple as you're this or that. Eye color is upwards of 10 different genes on 7 different chromosomes that all affect each other. And if you have this one turned on, this one's turned off. And if you have this gene turned on, it actually affects your hair color gene and all these things. There's so much there. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today, but we're going to talk a lot about it in the future, or you'll talk about it a lot in the second semester. Okay? So, moving forward here. So my background in genetics is, if you ever walk by my classroom, there's a placard there that says what my degree is in. I have a master's degree in um, epigenetics pharmacology. Epigenetics pharmacology. And what that means is my epigenetics means to change someone's genes after they're born. And pharmacology obviously means to make drugs. And so my research was in creating pharmaceutical drugs that could affect the DNA of living things. And so my research project was with a couple other students and professors, and we were trying to change the genetics of Asian carp. Asian carp are an invasive species that we're trying to stop from getting into the Great Lakes. And we were trying to create a drug that if we put it in the water, it would affect the Asian carp and stop them from being able to reproduce. And we were actually successful at that. We created a drug that if it took the Asian carp, got it into their system, it would destroy their sex chromosome, and they would no longer be able to reproduce viable offspring. The eggs would be barren, basically. And it worked. It worked really well. The problem is it worked too well, and it affected other fish and other livestock or living things around the rivers, including like frogs and salamanders, things like that. So unfortunately, it wasn't the solution to the problem of Asian carp, but it's kind of what I did most of my research on. So my degree is really trying to change someone's genes after they are born, and the study of that. And that's a big study right now, is how can we change somebody, maybe if they have a genetic defect, can we fix that genetic defect? Or even the vaccines for coronavirus right now come out of the study of epigenetics, because we're using RNA vaccines that are delivering a code to your cells to do something. And so can we deliver other code to your cells to fix other problems that your body might have? So that's what my background is, and I just wanted to let you guys know. So what is genetics? Genetics is the study of heredity and the variation of inherited characteristics. It's basically how we're all similar, how we're all different, and how and what does that all mean. You guys are probably more similar than you would ever imagine. The things that kind of separate you from other people in your classroom or other people in your community or other people in the United States are very small, microscopic differences. Most humans are almost exactly similar DNA wise. It's really just the outside features that are slightly different, which makes sense. I mean, all of our hearts are exactly the same for the most part. There are some variation, but not much. And this similarity is important because we all have to kind of have the same features to be able to live like humans. But the differences are also important too, and they need to be celebrated. And it's a cool thing that we're all different. It'd be kind of boring if we all looked exactly the same. And so with genetics, we're going to take a look at this in humans a lot. That's kind of what I just gave, the explanation of humans. There's also genetics across all living things, and there's a lot of different research that goes into plant genetics for our food, livestock genetics for farm animals and things that we kind of domesticated. There's also genetics into other organisms that we think are beneficial to us. A lot of genetic study goes into something like horseshoe crabs, which are these really ugly crabs that live on the east coast of the United States, because they don't get cancer and they actually have cancer fighting immune cells. And we research them a lot to try to figure out, can we develop that in humans? And so genetics is a huge, huge, huge field. It doesn't just include humans, it includes everything. So before we kind of start the unit, I kind of hope that we have some ideas of some things in our head. And you might not have this codified into like really, really, really definite things, but you have an idea about them. So first, your genetic code is DNA. And you've seen pictures of DNA. It's a double helix. We're going to talk about DNA later in the second semester. You have a decent amount of DNA inside of you. You have anywhere between 27,000 and 100,000 genes that make you, you. And I can even show you the genes. So for example, this is me right here. This is Matthew Rogers. This is my DNA. And so you can see if I click here and go all the way down to the bottom here, it says line 20, right? Recognize line 20. And so each one of these is a gene or a marker on my chromosome that we have identified as an important gene or chromosome marker that impacts my life. And if I keep going all the way down and go through all my genes, you can see right here, this is the chromosome number. I have 22 chromosomes plus sex chromosomes. I got pairs of them, so I end up having 46 chromosomes altogether. You keep going, 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 keep going. End up at the very bottom, and you'll see that if I click here, I'm at line 668,961. It's a lot of genes, a lot of things that make me Matthew Rogers, Matthew Rogers. A lot of these are similar to what you have, but some of them are unique to me and my background. So we have DNA. That's my genetic code. Every one of my cells has that. That's what I pass on to my offspring. Next, that you have a family lineage that is currently unbroken. So from the first living thing that exists on Earth until you, there is a lineage that's never been broken. The generation has passed on their traits to the next generation, passed on the next generation, and that has not been broken at all. You could actually do recent family lineage. I mean, you can't go all the way back 4.6 billion years, but you can do recent family lineage, and you could see who your family is for some research. It does require a lot of research. For example, mine here. So this is me here. Okay, Matthew Rogers, and this is my recent family. So there's my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and you keep going back, and I'll take Franklin Byron people, and I'll keep going back, and all these people. These guys were traders right here. They fought for the British when they were Americans during the American Revolution. Then they moved to Canada after they lost. Keep going, keep going. You get back into England here. You go here, go Waldegrave Pelham, go back over here, keep going, keep going. You go to Lady Anne Royal House of Tudor and Knowles. Cool, fantastic. Going this way. I'm going to go down this way, go to this person's really famous. It's my, trying to think, 18th or 17th great grandmother is Mary Boleyn. The Boleyn sisters, Anne Boleyn married Henry VIII, the king. Mary Boleyn was his girlfriend before that. keep going, and then you keep going. Like here, got Sir Thomas, first Earl of Surrey. Keep going, Kurt, keep going. And I keep going back here, go this way, go to Elizabeth de Seagrave, go to Brotherton, and then all of a sudden right here, I'm at Edward the First Longshanks, King of England, June 17th, 1239 to July 7th, 1307. I keep going back. That's just where I've stopped at this point. I mean, I can go back. Some parts of my family lineage goes back to 800 AD. And so you can figure this out. You can do all the research and get all the way back from me. All these people had to have kids and live long enough to have kids and pass on their traits, and then they had to have kids from the King of England until me, Matthew Rogers, not the King of England. So you have a family lineage just like me. Last but not least, without sounding rude, you are unique, but you are not that unique. There has actually been 3 people that have lived on Earth statistically that has exactly the same DNA as you. They could be living now. There's only so many possibility of DNA in having a successful human being. And so you're not that unique. Also, your siblings are pretty close to you. They only have roughly 500 to 600 different genetic differences out of hundreds of thousands. And so that's kind of interesting. Also, the people around you in your community. You know, you might not think you're related, but if your families have been in this community for a while, you're related somehow. You'd be surprised how quickly people get related if they've lived somewhere for about 100 to 150 years. Yeah. Finally, today, what you're going to do is we're going to start with something that's kind of fun. We're going to look at you and your traits. And so I put up a trait lab. This trait lab is looking at different traits that are simple traits. They are on or off traits for the most part. Meaning that when I say that most traits have complexity, these guys usually don't. You either have it or you don't. There are some little gray areas, but for the most part, there isn't. Okay, so I want you to go through the trait lab and tell me what one do you have. And then I want you to look at your parents or your siblings. And if you don't have parents or siblings around, look at a friend. If you don't have a friend around, I don't know, look online at random people. I don't really care. But I want you guys to see what traits they have. Okay. So that's your goal for today. That's your job for today. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great day, guys.